Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sharma Bando Muri Savadana Mate Bando Muri Savadana Mate Hare Prasane Vai He Bhavatoriyo Jai Hare Prasane Bhavatoriyo Jai Krishna Prapti Ho Jai Krishna Prapti Ho Jai Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utama Gati Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utama Gati Che Prashale Pure Sharva Shah Che Prashale Pure Sharva Shah डांडिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चाकू डांडिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्तिया होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्तिया होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाया हर चरित वेद गाया हर चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अनामा जनरा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अनामा जनरा बंधु लोकना लोकेरा जीवना लोकना लोकेरा जीवना हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोले पादा छाया प्रभु करो दया देह मोले पादा छाया एबे जासु त्रिभुवना एबे जासु त्रिभुवना श्रील प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Jaya Goranitai Jaya Goranitai Jaya Goranitai Jaya Goranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Shri Sham Sundar ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Asotara Sata Shishimada Divine Grace Shri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Asotara Sata Shishimada Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Sham Sundar Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki Vrindavan Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Jamuna Mai ki New Ramanrati Dham ki All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. So this morning we'll read a little excerpt from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 13. And this is Lord Chaitanya's Rath Yatra pastime. Just as Lord Sri Krishna formally performed the Rasa Leela dance and other pastimes at Vrindavan, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed uncommon pastimes, moment after moment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing before the Rath Yatra's car could be perceived only by pure devotees. Others could not understand. Descriptions of Lord Krishna's uncommon dancing can be found in the revealed scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in great jubilation and inundated all the people with waves of ecstatic love. Thus, Lord Jagannath mounted his car, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired all his devotees to dance in front of it. Now please hear about Lord Jagannath's going to the Gundicha temple while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced before the Rath car. The Lord performed Kirtan for some time and through his own endeavor inspired all the devotees to dance. When the Lord himself wanted to dance, all 7 groups combined together. So the Lord's devotees included Srivas, Ramai, Raghu, Govinda, Mukunda, Haridas, Govindananda, Madhava, and Govinda all combined together. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired to jump high while dancing, he placed these 9 people in the charge of Swarup Damodar. These devotees, Swarup Damodar and the devotees in his charge, sang along with the Lord, and they also ran beside him. All the other groups of men also sang. Others, offering obeisances to the Lord with folded hands, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised his face towards Jagannath and prayed as follows. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is the worshipable deity for all Brahminical men, who is the well-wisher of cows and brahmanas, and who is always benefiting the whole world. I offer my repeated obeisances to the personality of Godhead, known as Krishna and Govinda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. So with this, just want to remind you again that our 9th annual Tampa Rath Yatra is coming up June 29th. Thank you, Prabhu. That's a Sunday from this Sunday. And It's a very, very nice festival. We request all devotees to please come along. The bus is free. It leaves here at 7:15. There will be breakfast prasadam provided on the bus. We would be back here by 5 p.m. in time for the Sunday feast and prasadam. It's a nice, wonderful opportunity for us to go out in numbers, and who knows, maybe Lord Chaitanya may be there dancing as what is described here, you know. And actually, these Rath Yatra festivals are getting bigger and bigger across the planet. Now in Jagannath Puri, they're constructing a special highway from Bhubaneswar into Jagannath Puri just for the Rath Yatra festivals. The Indian government have already spent $350 million on that project, and they're hoping to complete it by 2015. So much people are attending these festivals, it's becoming more and more popular on the planet that after, I don't know, hundreds of years of these festivals, now they found the need to build a special highway, so that just gives us a message. Today, Friday, as usual, we have Harinam in Gainesville, 13th Street and University Avenue in front of the University of Florida. So ask all devotees to please join. It starts at 5 and ends at 6. And here are the devotees who have assisted their spiritual masters in dressing the deities today. Sri Sri Radhasham Sundar, Mother Asasaki. Sri Sri Chota Radhasham Sundar, Karneshwari Mataji. Sri Sri Krishna Balaram, Mother Akuti. Chota Krishna Balaram, Mother Guru Prasad. Sri Sri Gaunitai, Mother Jai Gauri. Chota Gaunitai, Yamaraj Prabhu. The Gurus and Lord Nrsimhadev, Krishna Kripa Moi Prabhu. And for this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, it will be our guest speaker and the founder of the Mayapur Institute for Higher Education, Janamashmi Prabhu. Harival.
Sharanandana Braja Janaranjana Sharanandana Braja Janaranjana Banachari Jamunachira Banachari Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hare Vijagacharya Ashto Tarasadashi Shrimad Krishnavanga Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hare Vijagacharya Ashto Tarasadashi Shrimad Krishnavanga Srila Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Sukaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dhamma Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai Brihatma Dangachan Sana Book Distribution Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gaura. Prabhu, I got the wrong book here. I need the next volume. Is that accessible? We could, I could just look at the folio. That might be the best way to go, huh? So this is chapter 55 of the 10th canto. This just goes up through 44. Why don't I just start reading from there? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You got it? Okay, great. Samaraj Prabhu Ki Jai. No problem. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 45, it's entitled Krishna Rescues His Teacher's Son. And today we're covering text 1. First we'll read the chapter summary. This chapter describes how Lord Krishna consoled Devaki, Vasudeva, and Nanda Maharaj and installed Ugrasena as king. It also relates how Krishna and Balaram completed their education, retrieved the dead son of their guru, and then returned home. Noting that his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, had realized his true position as God, Shri Krishna expanded his yoga maya to again make them think of him as their dear child. Then, with Lord Balaram, Krishna approached them and said how unhappy he was that he and they were unable to enjoy the mutual satisfaction of parents and children who live together. Then he stated, even in a lifetime of 100 years, no son can ever repay the debt he owes his parents, from whom he receives his very body. Any capable son who fails to support his parents will be forced in the hereafter to eat his own flesh. Did you hear that play? No. What am I kidding? Indeed, any person who does not maintain and nourish those under his care, children, wife, spiritual masters, brahmanas, elderly parents, and so on, is simply a living corpse. It is out of fear of Kamsa that we could not serve you. So now, please forgive us. Vasudeva and Devaki, overcome with emotion upon hearing these words of Shri Krishna's, embraced her two sons, and in ecstasy shed a torrent of tears. Having thus satisfied his mother and father, Lord Krishna offered Kamsa's kingdom to his maternal grandfather, Ugrasena, and then arranged for his family members, all his family members who had fled in fear of Kamsa, to return to their homes. Protected by the almighty arms of Krishna and Balaram, the Yadavas began to enjoy supreme bliss. Krishna and Balaram next approached Nanda Maharaj and praised him for having cared so lovingly for them, another's sons. Krishna then said to Nanda, "Dear father, please return to Braj, knowing how much you and our other relatives are suffering in separation from us. Balaram and I will come to see you as soon as we have satisfied your friends here in Mathura." Krishna then worshipped Nanda with various offerings, and Nanda felt overwhelmed with love for his sons. After tearfully embracing Krishna and Balaram, he took the cowherd men and departed for Braj. Next, Vasudeva had his priest perform his son's ritual of second birth, rabbinical initiation. Krishna and Balaram then went to Garga Muni to take the vow of brahmacharya, celibacy. Afterward, Krishna and Balaram, though omniscient, desired to reside at the school of his spiritual master, and thus they went to live with Sandipani Muni at Avantipur, which is in the district of Ujjain. To teach the proper way to respect one's guru, Krishna and Balaram served their spiritual master with great devotion, as they would a deity of the Supreme Lord himself. Sandipani Muni, pleased by their service, imparted to them detailed knowledge of all the Vedas, together with their 6 corollaries in the Upanishads. Krishna and Balaram needed to hear each subject explained only once to assimilate it completely, and thus in 64 days they learned the 64 traditional arts. Before taking leave of their guru, the two lords offered Sandipani Muni any gift he desired. The wise Sandipani, seeing their amazing prowess, requested that they bring back his son, who had died in the ocean at Prabhas. Krishna and Balaram mounted a chariot and went to Prabhas, where they approached the shore and worshipped the presiding deity of the ocean. Krishna asked the ocean to return his spiritual master's son, and the Lord of the ocean replied that a demon dwelling within the ocean named Panchajana had taken the boy away. Hearing this, Sri Krishna entered the ocean, killed that demon, and took the shell that had grown from his body. But when Krishna did not find his guru's son within the demon's belly, he went to the planet of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Yamaraj came forward when he heard Krishna blow the Panchajanya conch shell and devotedly worshipped him. Lord Krishna then asked Yamaraj for Sandipani Muni's son, and Yamaraj immediately gave him to the two lords. Krishna and Balaram then returned to their spiritual master and presented him with his son, requesting him to choose yet another favor. But Sandipani Muni replied that by having obtained disciples such as them, all his desires were fulfilled. He thus instructed them to return home. Krishna and Balaram traveled to their home by chariot, and upon their arrival, all the citizens became unlimitedly ecstatic to see them, just like persons who have regained a lost treasure. Okay, so we'll go through this pretty quickly because it's do we do responsively or? Huh? One person respond, one verse respond. I'm just doing one verse today. Yeah, maybe we just do that because I bit off a lot to chew in the class today, so not so much time. So just we can just chant this in unison, not responsively. Sri Sukha Uvacha Pitara Vupalam Darto Vitiva Purushottama Mabhuriti Nijam Mayam Tatana Janamohinam. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, understanding that his parents were becoming aware of his transcendental opulences, the Supreme Personality of Godhead thought that this should not be allowed to happen. He expanded his yoga maya, which bewilders his devotees. Purport. If Vasudeva and Devaki would have seen Krishna as Almighty God, their intense love for him as their son would have been spoiled. But Krishna did not want this. Rather, the Lord wanted to enjoy with them the ecstatic love of Vatsalya Ras, the relationship between parents and children. As Srila Prabhupada often pointed out, although we normally think of God as the Supreme Father, in Krishna consciousness we can enter into the Lord's pastimes and play the part of his parents, thus intensifying our love for him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the word jana may be translated here as devotees, as in the verse, Diyamanam na gunanti vina mat sevanam jana. He further explains that jana may also be translated as parents, since jana is derived from the word jan, which in a causative form, janayate, means to generate or to give birth to. In this sense of the word, as in janani or janako, the term jana mohini indicates that the Lord was about to expand his internal illusory potency so that Vasudeva and Devaki would again love him as their dear child. So translation again. Shukadeva Goswami said, understanding that his parents were becoming aware of his transcendental opulences, the Supreme Personality of Godhead thought that this should not be allowed to happen. Thus he expanded his yoga maya, which bewilders his devotees. Om Ganatimarandasha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umaitam Gena Taishmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the Nanda Mataji was very kind and asked me to give class in place of her. So I'm begging for the Vaishnava's mercy that I can say something of value to many senior devotees here. So please be merciful upon me and allow me to speak something of value. In the purport, the sentence that kind of stood out for me and which inspired me to expand the class on was the last sentence of the first paragraph. As Srila Prabhupada often pointed out, although we normally think of God as the Supreme Father in Krishna consciousness, we can enter into the Lord's pastimes and play the part of his parents. Okay, so in Krishna consciousness you can do that, thus intensifying our love for him. So I'm kind of a practical person. So what I started thinking, well, how do you do this? If this is actually something that's vastly superior, then, obviously devotees should make an attempt to, develop this type of relationship with Krishna. So in the Adi Leela, chapter 4, text 15 and 16, there's a description. This is the chapter that's entitled The Confidential Reasons for Lord Chaitanya's Appearance. And so I don't know the shloka. It's not so commonly recited, but essentially the translation is that the Lord comes to relish the different mellows of devotional service and to propagate spontaneous devotion throughout the world. So this is actually the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And interestingly enough, in the preceding verses and purports, there's a description that the killing of Kamsa, which we've just completed, is kind of an incidental activity. And actually, Krishna himself didn't do it. It was done by Vishnu, that came along with Lord Krishna when he appeared, as well as all of the other expansions and plenary and partial plenary expansions. Then the reason is that Vishnu's role is to protect and maintain the universe. So that was his job. Now, don't ask me to explain how that actually took place, because at least in the Leela, it appears that Krishna is doing it, but it's actually Vishnu that's doing it. So what really, Lord Krishna descended for, very similar, to demonstrate this Braj Bhakti. And then this is what, of course, Lord Chaitanya came to spread it throughout the world. So even though we may be engaged in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the real purpose of the Hare Krishna movement and of Lord Chaitanya's coming to this planet and Prabhupada's preaching was to spread spontaneous devotion throughout the world. So that may seem like maybe Janmastami Das is deviating or something, or trying to, start a Prakrita Sahaja cult or something like that. But this is the tattva, that, is very prominent in our tradition. Now, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur started his preaching, Gaudiya Vaishnavism had kind of degraded, in practice, so that most of the people that were so-called Gaudiya Vaishnavas were Prakrita Sahajiyas. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in particular was, described as a singer guru. This was a big part of his mission to put a stop to this. So that it's not that like Upadesh Sharan, the text 8 of Upadeshamrita, this is the essence of all instructions, to practice Raganuga Bhakti. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, they were very strong that one should not prematurely practice this, because, as Prabhupada would say, that rather than becoming purified, one will become putrefied by this. In other words, there'll be a source of degradation if one, out of pratishta, or desire for recognition, goes through, the Raganuga Bhakti sadhana, then, rather than becoming elevated, he'll just be meditating in a lusty way, which is what was taking place, at the time when Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur started their preaching missions. This was the state of affairs. So they had a lot of house cleaning to do. So, what I thought that I would focus on today is it's not such a commonly referenced verse and purport, but it says a tremendous amount about the process that Srila Prabhupada's given us. And this is just before the very famous Ye Nye Ravandaksha Vimukti Mani Nas verse, in the second chapter, the 10th canto, which describes, how this is the prayers of the demigods to Lord Krishna within the womb. And so this Ye Nye Ravandaksha Vimukti Mani Nas Tvayashtad Bhavadava Shuddha Buddhaya. This is the verse where one imagines he's liberated, but because he's failed to achieve attachment for the Lord, he falls down from his position of imagined superiority. So just prior to that is a verse which is, from my estimation, very relevant to what what I kind of started to unpack here. How we actually become qualified to go back to Godhead, how we actually become qualified to enter into the pastimes of the Lord, and understand our Swarup. And so anyway, let me, this is why I didn't chant much Jai Radha Madhava, and why we didn't chant the Sanskrit responsively. So this is Bhagavatam 10, Canto, 2nd chapter, 31st verse. Now, I'll read the translation, just some of the purport. This is, I want to give an example of someone that achieved this very high level of Krishna consciousness by following this formula that Prabhupada unpacks in this verse and purport. O Lord, who resemble the shining sun, you are always ready to fulfill the desire of your devotee. And therefore you are known as a desire tree, Panchakalpataru. When acharyas completely take shelter under your lotus feet in order to cross the fierce ocean of nescience, they leave behind on earth the method by which they cross. And you are very merciful to your other devotees. You accept this method to help them. Okay, so purport. This statement reveals how the merciful acharyas and the merciful Supreme Personality of Godhead together help the serious devotee who wants to return home back to Godhead. I'm skipping a little bit here. The duty of the Guru is to find the means according to the time, the circumstances, and the candidate by which one can be induced to render devotional service, which Krishna accepts from the candidate who wants to be successful in going back home, back to Godhead. Rupa Goswami, after wandering throughout the universe, a fortunate person within this material world seeks shelter of such a guru or acharya who trains the devotee in the suitable ways to render service according to the circumstances, so that the Supreme Personality of Godhead will accept the service. This makes it easier for the candidate to reach the ultimate destination. The acharya's duty, therefore, is to find the means by which devotees can render service according to references from Shastra. Okay, so then so there's, starting with Srila Vyasadeva, he made substantial adjustments to facilitate people in Kali Yuga to take up Krishna consciousness. He divided the Vedas, one Veda, into 4. So it's something that every acharya does. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur made very substantial adjustments. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced sannyas. That wasn't done before in our tradition. What to speak of Srila Prabhupada? He created the Brahmacharini ashram. He accepted Guru Puja when the deities were open. He did many, many adjustments, and he reduced the number of rounds of japa from 64 to 16. Actually, there's an interesting point in that regard. Krishna, what's the name of this devotee? He finished his PhD from Sweden, and he did a biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I'm drawing a blank here. Anyway, he said that the preachers in the Gaudiya Math, they would chant 16 rounds a day. And those that went out, this was the research that he found, and those that stayed back, did temple worship, they would chant 64 rounds a day. So the adjustment that Prabhupada made, there was already a precedent for that. So Prabhupada made many adjustments, but he had core instructions, 16 rounds for regulative principles. And another point that came up in a discussion, and it was repeated in numerous occasions, according to Hare Prabhu, was like in the beginning days of the Juhu project, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada leaned heavily upon him. We just heard a glorification of Shesha, that Shesha made of Tamal Krishna Maharaj on his Vyasa Puja last Sunday. And so Prabhupada, he couldn't find anyone else to handle the degree of difficulty of getting the Juhu project up and running, except Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj exclaimed to Prabhupada, "What hope is there? How can I think of Krishna? My mind is simply filled with temple finances." And Prabhupada responded by saying, "Yes, we've wasted many lifetimes on ourselves. If just in this one lifetime we can dedicate heart and soul to pushing on Lord Chaitanya's movement, then at the end, even if we're not completely perfect, Lord Chaitanya will personally come, he'll cover what we lack, and personally take us back to Godhead." So this was I actually found this, Bhakti Vikas Swami always was posting these messages on the Prabhupada Said conference. And I asked him where he got it, and he said he was listening to a lecture that Tamal Krishna Maharaj gave, and he just kind of transcribed it from that. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is that of course, there's the traditional path that's given by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, where a sadhaka comes to a point, he's achieved nishta, he's pretty much free, the narta nivritti, and there's no major issues going on in his behavior and his ability to follow devotional principles. And, and he's been focusing on the Bhagavatam for a long time, but the lobha, or this intense greed, to follow in the footsteps of a resident of Vrindavan hasn't awoken yet. And, that's not so common, actually. But it's a big part of our tradition. So then, how does that person go back to Godhead? So this question is actually answered, in this verse in purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Acharya gives the suitable method for crossing the ocean of nescience by accepting the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord. And if this method is strictly followed, the followers will ultimately reach the destination by the grace of the Lord. So, I saw, I was close friends with one devotee. Some of you may know him. This is Nirguna Prabhu. And he was a Prabhupada disciple. And I first met him in 1988. I distributed books with him in the Smoky Mountain National Park. And, he was a super enthusiastic book distributor. Mahatma Mataji introduced me to a devotee. What was the name of the devotee that you introduced me to over here? Brajabalabha, the other day. And he knew Nirguna, and he said exactly what I said about Nirguna. Any opportunity that he had to distribute books, he would just jump on it with full enthusiasm. I remember I used to go to the Atlanta airport with him to distribute, and it would be, a tough place, you really got to grind it out. Some of these businessmen were really hard to induce them to take a book. So we would work hard all day, and maybe 6-7 hours in the airport, and then it was about a 45-minute to an hour ride back to the temple. Maybe we would stop at a gas station to fill the tank, and everybody else would be in the van, just kind of like zonked out, from a real hard day of Sankirtan. But Nirguna would just jump out, and he would start, hitting people up, waiting, to get gas, or he'd approach the gas station attendants. That was the kind of person he was. So we were partners actually for 18 years. We did book distribution together, and then when I moved to India, I kind of had to resort to the pit because the cost of living, just the expenses, and then starting the Mayapur Institute just wasn't possible, just through book distribution. So then we would do the pick together. But he was just a bundle of determination and enthusiasm. Actually, Prabhupada, this is something that came from Giriraj Swami, he defined on numerous occasions, according to Giriraj Swami, determination as a determination to go back to Godhead in this very lifetime. And so they're going to really epitomize this type of determination. But he wasn't known as as a super advanced world preacher, like super advanced devotee. Just a real strict sadhaka and very sincere in his service. And my wife and I had the good fortune of assisting him in the last 3 months of his life. He had developed terminal cancer. He had a huge tumor in his chest, and he came to India. I mean, he'd been in. Let's see, this is 7 years ago, Gorpani Festival. He'd come to participate in the festival. Somehow or other, I was in Vrindavan at the time. We missed each other by 1 day on each side. But then I got word from a devotee that we used to distribute books with that he was really sick. And so then I tracked him down, and he'd already come to India. He'd spent $5,000 in Atlanta to try and get a diagnosis, and he still didn't really have a conclusive diagnosis of what was wrong. So he got, the mercy of the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, and they put him on the front of the queue at the Tata Memorial Hospital in Bombay, which is the #1 cancer hospital in Western India. And so, I was talking to him on the phone, and he knew that it was heavy. They didn't specifically spell it out what was going on. But then I talked with Vaishnava Seva, and he said he had spindle cell sarcoma, like a 6-inch, no, it was like 3.5-inch by 2.5-inch tumor that enveloped his aorta, the main artery into the heart, and his bronchial tube and his esophagus, so it wasn't operable. It was in such a vital place. So anyway, I've got to fast forward this. This is like a pretty intriguing story, of how he just made incredible progress, over a period of 3 months, how he got increasingly purified to the point where in the presence of, and maybe I should tell some of the details because it's pretty amazing. It was actually quite miraculous, his departure pastime. Let's see, I guess this is about 6 weeks before he left. This was actually on Radhastami. I got a call from my wife. I was in Vrindavan. I was teaching Nectar of Devotion. I got a call from my wife, and she told me that I should immediately come back to Mayapur, because otherwise I wouldn't see Nirguna again. He'd come to the decision that he was just going to stop taking any. He'd already stopped taking any solid food because he just couldn't swallow it because of the constriction of the tumor. But he was going to stop taking liquids. And when he stopped that, you've got, I think it's 3.5 days, and then the whole body starts shutting down. So he was going to stop doing that. So I immediately booked a flight and came back. And on the flight, I was reading Bhanu Swami's translation and of the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu in the commentaries. I was looking at the commentaries on how the desire for liberation and artificial renunciation actually harden the heart and are contrary, kind of make bhakti much more difficult. So when I got to him, you know, we started talking, and I just started thinking, you know, because he was in a lot of pain, and that was, you know, it's kind of like a desire for liberation. You know, he wanted to get out of the whole scene. And, you know, he'd found a reference in, I think in the 7th canto, where this is legitimate. If the body is no longer functional, then just like Maharaj Parikshit, you know, he fasted until death. So, and he consulted with Jananivas, and Jananivas gave him a green light. But then I said to him, you know, actually, Krishna may have a lot more learning, you know, for you to go through, a lot more growth. So, and it does seem like this may be contrary to bhakti, you know, that you want out because it's so painful. And, you know, but this is also part of the process, you know, to go through the stresses that Krishna sends our way, you know, to purify us. So then he started crying. He said, no, it's too much pain, you know. And so I just left. And then later in the, you know, about 4 or 5 hours later, I came back to him. And he said, Samasana, I've been thinking about this, and you know, you're right. Can I have a glass of water? You know, and so then he resumed. This was like 6 weeks before he actually left. And when, so I kind of, you know, I just had this intuition in my heart that this was something that would be extremely valuable to him, to just stick it out. And so I pretty much, you know, I was actually just about to present the chapter on Raganuga Bhakti and Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti in Vrindavan, so I went back to finish off the course. And then I came back, and you know, his condition had worsened quite a bit. He'd actually had to go for emergency treatment in Krishnanagar, and we realized that we didn't have adequately staffing to handle his medical needs. So we, you know, I'd been Sankirtan in America for, like, since I joined up until I became temple president in '92. So for 14 years I'd been Sankirtan leader. But this was the biggest marathon I'd ever organized, you know, to facilitate Nirguna's departure. And we actually ended up having, you know, one of the things that happened as the cancer progressed, the cancer ate into his spinal cord, and he became paralyzed from the waist down. And with that paralysis came this very intense pain, you know, in his legs and feet. And we discovered that the only way that he would get any kind of relief from it was to have vigorous and constant massage by devotees of his feet and legs. So I started making announcements after Mangal Artik, and we actually ended up having 32 caregivers to go on, you know, continuous 24/7 massage. Because even if he was asleep and the massage wasn't going on, he would wake up in excruciating pain, which would take hours to reduce, you know, through the massage. So it was actually an excellent facility for devotees to serve another devotee and to get to know Nirguna. I mean, Harisari didn't even know him before, and they became very, very close. Harisari would come every day, and he'd read for an hour or an hour and a half from his unpublished diary. So about 10 days before his departure, I got different versions. I sometimes tell this story, and it takes 2 hours to unpack, you know, so now I'm doing it in about 15 minutes. I'm doing the 15-minute version. But about 10 days before he left, he revealed to one of we had physical caregivers, and we also had spiritual caregivers. We had one of the devotees from the Bhaktivedanta hospital that was just finishing up his training in hospice care. So he came. And then, you know, we had my wife, she was a nurse before she became a devotee, and then we had another, Rama Devi, Prabhupada disciple from the UK, she's a nurse. So we had quite a few on the care team. So we had spiritual caregivers, you know, like the senior devotees who come and read to Nirguna, and then we had those devotees that were doing the massage and other real practical things. So one day, Nirguna revealed to the devotee that, you know, somehow or other, I have this understanding that my service in Vrindavan is that of a manjari, of facilitating Radha Krishna's conjugal pastimes. But I'm not sure of it, and I'm waiting for an invitation. Okay, so he explained it, and here he is, he hadn't really eaten practically. He was a small man anyway, but he hadn't eaten practically for, like 6-7 weeks. So his thigh was the size of my wrist, and he was just, he got down, so I think he weighed 45 pounds at the end, and he I think when he was in normal health, he weighed, I think, about 115 or 120. So, he was just kind of a bag of bones. And, and then this became a subject matter of discussion between himself and Hare. And the way it went was that in order to hear Nirguna, because he was so weak, you'd had to put your ear right on his mouth and he'd whisper to you. Okay, so from time to time, Hare would say, Nirguna Prabhu, have you gotten your invitation yet? And Nirguna would kind of like in a dejected way say, no, hang his head. He's just kind of meditating on it. He had this impression. It wasn't actually a vision, but it was just some kind of an inner sense that this was his Swarup. So then, one night, what I would do, to kind of facilitate his support, I would contact senior devotees that he had developed relationships with over the years. So one senior devotee that he was close with was Jayapataka Swami, because he'd married Jayapataka Swami's disciple, and he'd served as the temple president in Murari Sevak. Jayapataka Swami was the GBC. So this was the night that this took place. This was on the appearance day of Radha Kund. So I had located Jayapataka Swami. He was in Southern California. And I went to Nirguna. It was about 10 minutes after 9 at night. And I said to Nirguna, Grahila Prabhu, who used to be an indexer for the BBT, he was on duty. He was massaging Nirguna's legs at the time. We'd had, most of the devotees had gone home. Every night we'd have Kirtan. We had multiple Kirtans. We'd have all the Gurukul boys, they would come, they would do Kirtan, and then the Gurukul girls would come, and then the adults would come, and we'd end up about 8:30 at night. So this is 9:10, and practically everybody had gone home. So I told Nirguna Prabhu, I got Jayapataka Swami on the phone. In 5 minutes he'll call you. And I was kind of shocked at his response. He pushed me away like I was bugging him. He was very weak, but it was just kind of like. So then I went to Grahila and said, Grahila, what's going on with Nirguna? And he said, I don't know, Jamaswami, but I got a real strong sense he's about ready to leave this body. So then I went and woke up. Now he's in charge of the hospice in Vrindavan. I can't think of what his name is. This is what happens when you get a 64-year-old brain. Huh? Avnish. But now he's initiated. He's got another name. I told Avnish what Grahila told me, and he said, okay, let me check. And sure enough, he went and checked his pulse and his blood pressure, and it was very, very low. He couldn't actually perceive blood pressure. It wasn't detectable. It was so low. And he said, okay, so, because we would ask him for different predictions of how long Nirguna would live. And, up until then he'd say, he'll live like 1 to 2 weeks, then he'll live a few days. And after getting that, checking his vital signs, he said he's got, just a few hours left. So then I called everybody back. Hare had just taken a rest. I called him, Pankajangri, Janani Vasa. We started all night Kirtan. And then after Mangal Arti, Karma Prabhu, the famous cook, was there, and he led Kirtan for 7 hours throughout the night. They became friends, because Nirguna's wife had 20 years, 2 years prior to his departure, it left him. So he kind of like got covered over. And that was also one of the arguments I used to Nirguna to not fast until death, because his ex-wife was coming to see him. I said, you got this responsibility, Guru Nasashat, Swajano Nasashat. So anyway, and she actually started practicing Krishna consciousness again. Okay, so I digress a little bit. The clock's killing me on this. So we're getting to the punchline, so don't leave yet. It's pretty amazing. So then the Kirtan, so I went to, after Mangal Arti, I described the situation that Nirguna lost consciousness. Dr. Avnish, he didn't feel that he would regain it. And I quoted Radhanath Swami, who had experience, with Bhakti Tirtha Swami and a couple of his disciples assisting their departure. He said it's very important that the chanting of the holy names going on, because the soul is very conscious of this, and it will really help. So this was in the first Mayapur Institute classroom. It was actually my first apartment, and we'd taken the veranda wall out and turned it into a classroom. So it was a small space, 16 by 20 feet, and we had about 75 to 80 devotees in there, after everybody came over from Mangal Arti. And I mean, it was really powerful kirtan going on. And then one devotee from Vancouver, Madan Mohan, he started leading the kirtan. He was on the Nagar, the Nagar Sankirtan department. He had this real beautiful singing voice. So he was leading the kirtan. And at about 7:20 in the morning, Bhakti Vishwambar Madhava Swami, who was just here, this sannyasi, he'd taken a month off just to assist Nirguna's departure. So he was sitting right next to me. We had Nirguna kind of pointed like in a rocket ship. We had this hospital bed, and it was pointed right into the due east, because that was the most auspicious position. The vastu in the house was a little out of whack, so it was right into this corner. So Bhakti Vishwambar Madhava Swami was sitting right near Guna's head. Across on the other side of the bed was Hari Sari, Janarivas Pankajangri, Pamalochan. I was sitting right next to Bhakti Vishwambar Madhava Swami. And then all of a sudden, Maharaj scared the hell out of me. He grabbed my leg and said, Jamastami, Jamastami. Look, Nirguna, his mouth is moving. And so I looked and said, sure enough, And not only that, but it became evident that he was singing along with a kirtan. And then he opens his eyes, and he lifts his arms up, and he's got an incredibly blissed out look on his face. Yeah, here, he couldn't even lift his finger, like 12 hours before. But here he's lifting his arms up, and he's chanting along and completely blissed out. And Dr. Avnish said he'd never, ever seen anything like this. This completely defied any understanding he had of the dying process. So in the course, and of course the kirtan just escalated to a whole new crescendo of ecstasy. It was like amazing. And in the midst of this kirtan, Harisari, who'd had this dialogue going on with Nirguna, heard Nirguna speak in a loud voice, in the midst of the kirtan. Get your peace and go. So Harisari was like completely bewildered by this. First of all, that it was coming in such a loud voice. So then he went to Nirguna, and he said, Nirguna, did someone say something to you? And Nirguna shook his head. I mean, he's completely in ecstasy. And then Harisari said, so who? And he said, Giriraj. And it was speaking in a normal voice. It wasn't a whisper anymore. So then Harisari said, Harisari was thinking to himself that, he said, peace, well, get your peace of mind and go. So then, but he wasn't quite sure. So then Harisari said, what did Giriraj mean by peace? And he said, Giriraj. So Harisari said, he kind of started putting it all together. So Giriraj, oh, by the way, this is part of the miracle. Ramadevi, who was an attending nurse, you have to forgive me if I run over time a little bit. It's just too much ecstasy for me to try and contain it all. She was worshipping Govardhan Shila. The first BBT painting that Nirguna saw of Krishna was of Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill. So he had a very special bhav with Giriraj. So towards the end, like the last 10 days or so, devotees put a Giriraj on his chest, so he was looking, when he looked straight ahead, you'd see these big white eyes beaming back at him. And then, the last couple of days, Harisari put a Giriraj right in his right hand. So then Harisari said to Nirguna, so Giriraj told you to take him and go. And then Nirguna shook his head like that. And then he said to Nirguna, Nirguna, Prabhu, did you get your invitation? And then Nirguna just beamed and he said, yes. So then, what I did after that, I didn't know all that was going on because I was managing this whole affair, It was like this huge marathon. I had, I slept like 1 hour that night, and I knew I had to deal with the government officials in Krishnanagar so we could have the cremation, in a timely way. And so, at any rate, I got Radhanath Swami on the phone, and he was, he'd coached me through the whole thing, and then so he started talking to Nirguna, preaching to him a little bit, and he just started singing some Vaishnava bhajans, and then just started chanting japa. And so it went on for about a half an hour, and I was thinking, here in India, there's always these disconnects on mobile phones. So I picked up the headset, from the mobile phone, put it on my ear and said, Maharaj, are you still there? And I said, yes, Jamaswami, but I got to go. I'm going to miss my plane. Because he was coming for this Mayapur Yatra with like 4,000 or 5,000 of his disciples, that was supposed to have to start the next day. I was hoping that Nirguna would hold on until then. Krishna had another plan. So, at any rate, then shortly after that, Nirguna lost consciousness. And then at 1:22 in that afternoon, he left his body. And, it was just like the most amazing thing. There's a term in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rati Abbas, where when you're in the presence of someone who's on the bhava platform, you experience that same ecstasy. And there's examples of devotees that were in Prabhupada's association where he would be in this ecstatic, state, and they would just feel this incredible ecstasy. So everybody that was in that room felt like amazing transcendental bliss at that time. So I guess the point is this, Prabhupada gave us a promise that if we simply chant 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles, and dedicate our lives to pushing this movement on, then at the end, even if we're not completely perfect, Krishna will come, or Chaitanya will personally come, will cover what we lack, and personally take us back to Godhead. So this is a case in point. And, I actually, in this book that Giriraj Swami just published, Death and Dying from a Vedic Perspective, I told this story at the opening of the, I did the half-hour version, the opening of the Vrindavan Hospice, and so they transcribed it and put it in there, but it's not, one of the points that Giriraj Swami makes is that this isn't unique. This has happened with a lot of devotees. In their last moments, they come to a very, very high level of Krishna consciousness. If one realizes the Sarup, that's symptomatic of the stage of bhava. And and there's a promise, just like, Bhishma Dev, in the battle of Kurukshetra, in the early part of the battle, Duryodhana came to him and complained, you're not really fighting up to your capacity because of your affection for the Pandavas. So that was a big, insult, to a Kshatriya chivalry. So Bhishma Dev made a vow, that he would either force Krishna to break his vow, and Krishna at the beginning of the battle had made a vow that he would, his army would go on one side and he'd go on the other side, but he wouldn't personally fight. So he made a vow that he wouldn't fight. So then, so Bhishma Dev made this vow. He'd either kill Arjuna or he'd force Krishna to break his vow. So the next day in the battle, sure enough, Arjuna is in a really precarious position, and it looks like Bhishma Dev's about ready to kill him. So what does Krishna do? To preserve the promise or the vow of his devotee, he breaks his own vow because it has a higher priority. So he jumps off the chariot, gets the broken chariot wheel and goes after Bhishma Dev. So Bhishma Dev vow is not broken. So this is kind of the transcendental teamwork that takes place between Krishna and the Acharya. The Acharya establishes the means for his followers. He leaves the boat on the shore of the ocean of nations so that the devotee can cross over it very easily. Samashrita ye para palava pavam mahatpadam punya yasho marare pavam budir vatsapadam param padam 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 yat vi padam natesham. It's like being able to cross the water that's contained in a hoof print of a calf. It becomes so easy. And so this, for one who takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And that taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is working under the direction of the Acharya. He gives specific, according to time, circumstances, and the candidates, directions of how he can cross over. So this is very clear, and Prabhupada repetitively made these statements. So if we take that up, we don't need anything else. There's no greener pasture. We've got the most empowered Acharya in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, as our foundational Shiksha Guru. So let me stop here. Sometimes the class goes to 9, I've noticed. So if there's any questions or comments or chastisements, I'll try my best. I'm sorry if I went so long. It's hard to compress into a short period. Anything? Thank you. Yes, Mataji. I'm sorry I don't know everybody. I know a lot of faces, but I've been out of America for about 17 years, so I can't remember everybody's names. Yes.
I actually appreciated your class so much and this story so much because to me also it's very clear that what Srila Prabhupada gave us was more than sufficient. And then these stories when devotees pass, just, following Prabhupada's instructions, trying to spread the movement, distribute his books, and they're elevated to the highest platform. So it's not that we have to do something else, to find some other literatures to read. It's like everything's there. So anyway, thank you very much. I thought it was very confirming. Again.
I found a lot of Shastric support for also what Prabhupada has said, from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, so Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur, in Chaitanya Chandamrita. He describes how that one who gets the nectar of service to Lord Chaitanya, he's the one that can taste the nectar of service to Radha and Krishna. That's how it takes place. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Navadvipam Mahatmya, he describes that this Dasya Ras to Lord Chaitanya naturally transforms into the Braj Bhakti, as one progresses. So this is like the whole mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada. And, we got many, many examples, and we'll have many more, of how this actually manifests. It's not to say that some devotees, that awaken greed, lobha, that they practice, they don't manifest this externally, but they can go ahead, this is a big part of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You can practice Raganuga Bhakti. But, there's another interesting point, that Jiva Goswami makes in Bhakti Sandarbha, and that's that, there's a Jata Ruchi and Jata Ruchi Raganuga Bhakti. So actually, because the sadhana practices that Prabhupada has given us, the Pancharatri, they're Bhagavat Vidhi, in different places. Like for instance, in a lecture on Bhagavatam 4.24.45 in Kharagpur, Prabhupada, the Bhagavad Gita is actually the Bhakti Marg. So there's Bhakti Matra Kama. So Bhakti that's focused, the devotional practices that are focused to develop pure devotion, to enter into the Braj Bhakti, this is actually an important aspect of the Raganuga Bhakti process. And so there's two levels of Raganuga Bhakti according to Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha. There's Ajata Ruchi. This is before taste awakens, before greed awakens. And then there's Jata Ruchi, where the taste is awoken, where the greed's there. But it's a flow, it's a continuum. So, in that sense, one could say that a serious ISKCON sadhaka, he's actually practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Because that's the end result, But it's in a particular mood that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada had, according to the requirements of a worldwide mission, and according to the time, the circumstances, and the candidates. Hey, we weren't born in so auspicious conditions, here in America. So we got a ways to go. So that we need the power, such a powerful Yuga Dharma to get there. Anything else, or shall we end? Yes, Mahatma Mataji.
Hare Krishna. In 1995, the mailman from LA moved to Alachua after serving the devotees there for 17 years. And I think it was kind of the first case that we saw here in Alachua. I was able to take care of him.
You took care of him?
Yeah, for about 3 months, because as soon as he moved here, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. So he only lasted 3 months. But I was going to say that the mercy from Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada go beyond the rules and the regulations, because he was serving the devotees for 17 years, but he never went into the temple because he didn't want to take his shoes off in LA until Janmashtami day that year. And then I invited him to come here, so he came. So short story, but so when he was diagnosed, he had not been chanting for years or whatever. He just heard everything, but he never chanted. So at the time that he was diagnosed, I was honored to take care of him. And I told him, this is it, you have to listen and you have to see. So I had all these videos running for him every day, and he was listening, and devotees will come and ask him, what are you thinking? What are your desires? And he says, well, I want to eat this, I want to eat that, but Mahatma says I shouldn't, because at the time of death, I have to be clean mind and my body also. So he followed, like, for a few weeks or few months, austerities, and listened. And I tell you, Prabhu, his departure was very auspicious, and this is just to say that Lord Chaitanya's mercy goes beyond, yes, we have to follow, but at the end, Krishna will favor these souls that have a little bit of sincerity or a little bit of desire to get close. He just accepted that because I say so. He said, I have to. And when the Jehovah Witnesses came and asked him, are you afraid of dying? And he says, no, I'm not, because Mahatma says that I'm going to come back as a Japanese devotee, and I'm going to be able to jump and dance in my next life in the temple.
Okay. Thank you for putting us in ecstasy, Mataji. Very nice. So it's a pastime that's repetitively performed by Lord Chaitanya. And so we can have full confidence that just by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, by following Srila Prabhupada's directions, that this will be our destiny as well. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.